The notification popped up on Evelyn's phone at 3:42 a.m., casting an eerie blue glow across her face in the darkness of her bedroom. Marcus Harding has arrived at Atlantis Paradise Island, Bahamas. She stared at the screen, her chest tightening as she read the words again and again. The tracking app she'd installed in a moment of paranoia 6 months ago, the one she'd nearly forgotten about, now delivered the truth with clinical precision. Her husband was supposed to be at a marketing conference in Chicago. Her thumb hovered over the notification before she opened the app fully, watching as the pulsing blue dot confirmed his location at the luxury resort. Evelyn sat up in bed, shoulders rigid, her wedding ring catching the moonlight filtering through the blinds. "So much for that business conference," she whispered to the empty room. 2 years earlier, "Do you, Evelyn Marie Chen, take Marcus William Harding to be your lawfully wedded husband?" The words hung in the air as Evelyn gazed at Marcus, his dark eyes reflecting the soft glow of the fairy lights strung across the vineyard's canopy. She had never been more certain of anything in her life. "I do," she said, her voice steady despite the rush of emotion. Their wedding had been perfect, intimate, with just 60 guests at a small winery in Sonoma. Marcus had insisted on keeping it simple, and Evelyn had agreed. They didn't need extravagance. They had each other. Evelyn was 34, a successful architect who had built her firm from scratch. Marcus, 38, ran a burgeoning marketing agency that specialized in luxury brands. They'd met at a charity gala 3 years earlier, and despite Evelyn's initial reservations about dating someone so polished and smooth-talking, she'd fallen for his passion and ambition. "To the architect of my heart," he'd said during his wedding vows, "who designed the blueprint for the man I want to be?" Now, in the kitchen of their downtown condo, Evelyn slid a mug of coffee across the counter to Marcus, who was studying his phone intently. "Another Chicago trip next month?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. It would be his third in 6 months. Marcus didn't look up. "Thompson wants to revamp their entire hospitality portfolio. It's a huge account, Ev." He finally raised his eyes, offering that smile that still made her stomach flip. "I'm sorry about the timing. I know we talked about starting the IVF treatments, but it's fine," Evelyn cut in, though it wasn't. At 36, she was increasingly aware of the ticking clock. "We can delay another month." Marcus circled the counter, wrapping his arms around her waist. "This account could change everything for us. The commission alone would cover the IVF and then some." He kissed her temple. "Trust me, it'll be worth it." Trust had never been an issue for Evelyn, until 6 months ago. It started with small things. Late-night texts that Marcus shielded from her view, calls he took on the balcony, voice lowered, weekend work emergencies that pulled him away for hours, and then there was the scent, a perfume that wasn't hers, faint but unmistakable on his collar when he returned from his last Chicago trip. "I had drinks with Diane from Thompson," he'd explained when she'd asked. "You know how she wears enough perfume to choke a horse." Evelyn had nodded, but something had shifted inside her, a small fissure in the foundation of their marriage. The apartment was empty when she returned from her therapy session, the one Marcus didn't know about. She'd started going after the second postponement of their IVF treatment. "Just to sort through my feelings about the process," she'd told herself, not admitting that her sessions increasingly focused on her suspicions about her husband. "What would you do if you knew for certain?" Dr. Winters had asked earlier that day. Evelyn had stared at her hands. "I don't know." "That's what you need to figure out," Dr. Winters had replied gently. "Before you go looking for evidence you might not be prepared to find." But that night, as Marcus showered after returning late from work, his phone had chimed on the counter. Evelyn told herself not to look, then found herself standing over it, reading a text preview from Diane T. "Can't wait for Bahamas. Bought something special to wear." The rest was cut off. Evelyn had put the phone down, heart hammering, and retreated to the living room before Marcus emerged. That night, she'd downloaded the tracking app. "It's just to give me peace of mind," she'd whispered, as she'd synced it with his phone while he slept. "When I see he's really in Chicago, I can put this all behind us." For months, the app had confirmed his locations matched his stories. Client meetings downtown, drinks at the aviary, dinner at Gibson's. Her suspicions had begun to fade until she'd nearly forgotten the app entirely. Until tonight. The sun was barely cresting the horizon as Evelyn booked the flight to Nassau. First class, one way, departing in 3 hours, $3,047 charged to their joint credit card. Let him see it. Let him wonder. She packed methodically, emotions, suspended in a strange, cold clarity that had descended over her after the initial shock. Designer sundresses, sandals, sunglasses, swimsuits she'd bought for their anniversary trip to Maui that Marcus had canceled due to, what was it? A major presentation that couldn't be rescheduled. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Morning, beautiful. Conference sessions all day. Probably won't be able to talk until tonight. Miss you." She stared at the message, at the casual lies strung together with such ease, and wondered how many similar texts she'd received over the past year. How many endearments had been typed while he was with someone else? She didn't respond. The flight was a blur of miniature vodka bottles and staring out the window at endless blue. The woman beside her, Carolyn, a divorced pharmaceutical rep, had chatted amiably about her own cheating ex until Evelyn had finally put on headphones to signal she needed silence. "Just remember," Carolyn had said before retreating to her magazine, "whatever you find, you deserved better all along." The Atlantis resort rose from the shoreline like a pink mirage, palatial and imposing against the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. Evelyn checked into a room in the Royal Towers, deliberately selecting a different building from where Marcus's location showed on the app. It was 4:17 p.m. According to the pulsing blue dot, Marcus was at one of the resort's pools. She changed into a black one-piece swimsuit, covered it with a sheer white caftan, pulled her dark hair into a tight bun, and donned large sunglasses. Then she headed to the pool area, stomach churning with each step. The Cove Pool was an adults-only oasis, ringed with private cabanas and dotted with daybeds. Evelyn scanned the scene methodically, her architect's eye for detail serving her well, as she categorized and dismissed groups of vacationers. And then she saw him. Marcus was stretched out on a daybed, shirtless, golden afternoon light catching the planes of his chest, the chest she knew better than her own face. But it wasn't his familiar form that caused her breath to catch. It was the woman draped across him, her honey blonde hair spilling over his shoulder, red bikini stark against her tanned skin. Diane Thompson was exactly as Evelyn had pictured her. Young, perhaps 30, with the confident beauty of someone who had never questioned her place in the world. As Evelyn watched, frozen behind the shelter of a large potted palm, Marcus leaned down to kiss Diane deeply, his hand sliding beneath the tie of her bikini top. The intimacy of the gesture, so familiar, so clearly practiced, made Evelyn's knees buckle. She gripped the edge of a nearby empty lounge chair, steadying herself as reality crashed over her in waves. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was an established relationship, conducted in parallel to their marriage, perhaps for months or even years. She retreated to her room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The tracking app showed Marcus still at the pool. She opened her photo gallery, scrolling through images of their life together, holidays, dinner parties, lazy Sundays at home, searching for signs she might have missed. Had the light in his eyes dimmed when he looked at her? Had his touch become perfunctory? His kisses distracted? Her phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. Boring session on digital marketing metrics. Kill me now. How's your day going? Something broke loose inside her then. a shard of ice that had been lodged in her chest since that 3:42 a.m. notification. She began to laugh, a harsh, guttural sound that gave way to deep, racking sobs that bent her double on the hotel bed. When she finally straightened, wiping her eyes, Evelyn knew exactly what she was going to do. The reservation at Nobu was for 8:30 p.m., prime dinner hour at the resort's most exclusive restaurant. Evelyn had called ahead, explaining to the sympathetic hostess that she wanted to surprise her husband, who was dining there with a colleague. A generous tip had secured her a table with a clear view of the reservation under Harding. She dressed with precision. The red silk dress Marcus had bought her for her birthday, diamond drop earrings, her hair loose around her shoulders the way he liked it. Her armor not for him but for herself. Evelyn arrived at 8:15, was seated with a glass of champagne, and waited. At 8:32, Marcus and Diane entered the restaurant, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back, the same gesture he'd used with Evelyn countless times. Diane wore a slinky black dress, her blonde hair swept up to reveal diamond studs that caught the light with every movement. Marcus didn't notice Evelyn as they were led to their table. Too absorbed in whatever Diane was saying, his head bent toward her with that focused attention he gave to things he truly valued. Evelyn waited until they had ordered, until they had clinked glasses in a toast, until Marcus had reached across the table to entwine his fingers with Diane's. Then she stood, smoothed her dress, and walked slowly to their table. Marcus saw her when she was 3 steps away. The recognition dawning on his face would have been comical in any other circumstance. Eyes widening, mouth falling open, color draining from his features as if he'd seen a ghost. "Evelyn," he choked out, dropping Diane's hand as if it had burned him. "What? How? Hello, Marcus," Evelyn said, her voice remarkably steady. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your colleague?" Diane looked between them, confusion giving way to understanding. "You're his wife," she said flatly. "I am," Evelyn confirmed, meeting the woman's gaze directly. Though apparently that detail wasn't important enough to mention. "Evelyn, this isn't," Marcus began, standing abruptly. "Let me explain. Actually," Evelyn cut in, "I'm not interested in explanations. I've seen enough." She turned to Diane. "How long?" Diane at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. 14 months, she said quietly. 14 months. Nearly half their marriage. Evelyn absorbed the blow, refusing to flinch. "I thought it was just physical at first," Diane continued, ignoring Marcus's attempts to silence her. "But then he said he was leaving you after closing the Thompson account. That you two were already separated but keeping it quiet for professional reasons." Evelyn nodded slowly, pieces clicking into place. "And the account? Is that real at least?" Diane frowned. "There is no account. I left Thompson 6 months ago to work with Marcus. We're partners, in business and otherwise." The restaurant had grown quieter, other diners sensing the drama unfolding. Marcus grabbed Evelyn's arm, his fingers digging into her skin. "Not here," he hissed. "For God's sake, Evelyn." She looked pointedly at his hand until he released her. "No, I think here is perfect," she said. "I like witnesses. How did you even know where I was?" Marcus demanded, desperation edging into his voice. Evelyn smiled thinly. "Remember when you lost your phone in the couch cushions 6 months ago and asked me to call it? I installed a tracking app while you were in the shower that night. Paranoid, right? Except I wasn't paranoid enough." His face darkened. "You tracked me? That's insane, Evelyn. That's insane is telling your wife you're at a business conference in Chicago while you're fucking your girlfriend in the Bahamas," Evelyn said, her voice rising slightly. "Insane is postponing IVF treatments for a fake client while building a life with someone else." Marcus blanched at that, and Evelyn knew she'd struck home. He'd always wanted children, or so he'd claimed. "You want to talk about our marriage?" "Fine," Marcus said, lowering his voice and leaning closer. "You work 60-hour weeks. You're obsessed with your firm. When was the last time you were actually present with me? Really there?" "Don't you dare," Evelyn whispered fiercely. "Don't you dare turn this around." Diane stood suddenly. "I should go." Sit down, Evelyn and Marcus said in unison. Diane hesitated, then sank back into her chair, looking trapped. I was building something for us, Evelyn said to Marcus, her voice breaking slightly for the first time. For our future, for the family we were supposed to have. I didn't want that future anymore, Marcus replied, the truth finally spilling out. But I didn't know how to tell you. The simple admission hit harder than any of his lies. Evelyn stood very still, aware of the restaurant's hushed atmosphere, of Diane's uncomfortable shifting, of Marcus's ragged breathing. You didn't know how to tell me, she repeated slowly, so instead you lied to me for 14 months. You made me question my sanity. You let me believe we were trying for a child while you were building a new life with someone else. Something shifted in Marcus's expression, not remorse, but annoyance. What do you want from me, Evelyn? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I handled it badly. But this, he gestured around the restaurant, this vindictive ambush, doesn't exactly prove I was wrong about us, the last thread of hope Evelyn had been unconsciously clinging to, that there might be genuine regret, that the man she'd married still existed somewhere beneath the betrayal, snapped cleanly. She reached for his water glass, contemplated throwing it in his face, then set it back down deliberately. No, she said quietly. I won't give you the satisfaction of painting me as the hysterical wife. Instead, she opened her clutch and withdrew a folded document, placing it precisely on the table between them. What's this? Marcus asked warily. It's a prenup provision you apparently forgot about, Evelyn said. Section 8.3, Infidelity Clause. In the event that either party engages in a sexual or romantic relationship outside the marriage, the offending party forfeits all rights to the joint property acquired during the marriage and shall pay the wronged party a sum equal to 30% of their individual assets. Marcus's face drained of color. That's not enforceable. My attorney says differently, Evelyn replied. Especially with documentation of your affair and the fraudulent business trips charged to our joint accounts. She nodded toward Diane. And I'm guessing your new partner will make an excellent witness when she receives her subpoena. Diane stood again. I'm leaving. This is between you two. This time, neither stopped her as she grabbed her purse and walked rapidly toward the exit. You wouldn't, Marcus said when she'd gone, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. It would ruin me. The same way you ruined us? Evelyn asked quietly. For a long moment, they stared at each other across the wreckage of their marriage. Two people who had once promised forever, now unable to recognize each other. I loved you, Evelyn said finally. That wasn't a lie. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Perhaps the ghost of the man she'd married. I loved you too, he said. At the beginning. Evelyn nodded once, accepting the small truth among so many lies. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Marcus alone at the table with the legal document that would dismantle the life he'd built on deception. 6 months later, the Eye. Keys to Evelyn's new waterfront office made a satisfying weight in her palm as she unlocked the door. Morning light spilled through the wall of windows, illuminating drafting tables, material samples, and the sleek conference area where she would soon meet her first clients in the expanded space. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier. Marcus hadn't contested it after his attorney confirmed the enforceability of the prenup's infidelity clause. He'd signed the papers without meeting her eyes, a shadow of the confident man she'd married. Evelyn set her coffee on the desk and opened her laptop. A notification from her bank appeared, the final transfer of assets from the settlement. She closed it without examining the amount. The money had never been the point. Her phone chimed with a text from Maya, her younger sister who had flown to the Bahamas the day after the confrontation to help Evelyn pick up the pieces. First day in the new office. Sending all the good vibes. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Evelyn smiled and typed back, absolutely. 7 p.m. at Lucia's? She set the phone down and moved to the windows, gazing out at the harbor. The therapy sessions had continued, shifting focus from the betrayal to rebuilding. You didn't just lose a husband, Dr. Winters had observed during their last session. You lost the future you had imagined. It's okay to mourn that, even as you create something new. The bell above the door chimed softly, and Evelyn turned to see a delivery person holding an extravagant arrangement of white lilies, her favorite. Evelyn Chen? The delivery man asked, consulting his clipboard. That's me, she confirmed, surprised. No one knew about the office opening except Maya and her parents. He set the arrangement on the reception desk and handed her a small envelope before departing with a nod. Evelyn opened it warily, half expecting it to be from Marcus, some belated attempt at reconciliation now that the financial dust had settled. But the handwriting on the card wasn't his. Congratulations on your new beginning. Some endings are doorways, not walls. Carolyn beneath the message was a business card for Carolyn Davis, pharmaceutical sales director, with a handwritten note. Coffee sometime? Evelyn ran her finger over the embossed lettering, remembering the woman from the plane who had shared her own story of betrayal and survival. She'd given Carolyn her business card, but hadn't expected to hear from her. Her phone chimed again with an alert. Her first clients would arrive in 15 minutes. Evelyn tucked the card into her wallet, straightened the lilies on the reception desk, and moved to the conference room to prepare her presentation. On her wrist, a new watch gleamed, a gift to herself bought with the first installment of the settlement money. It wasn't about the luxury. It was about reclaiming time. Her time. As she arranged the architectural models on the table, Evelyn realized she hadn't checked the tracking app in months. After the confrontation in the Bahamas, she'd kept it active, watching as Marcus's blue dot moved through the final months of their marriage, from his apartment to his office, occasionally to Diane's place across town. But somewhere along the way, tracking his whereabouts had lost its importance. The answers she'd sought weren't in his location. They were in the choices she made for herself in the aftermath. Evelyn pulled out her phone and opened the app one last time. Marcus's dot pulsed somewhere downtown, at his office presumably, or perhaps at lunch. With a sense of quiet finality, she deleted the app, feeling lighter as it disappeared from her screen. Outside, a sailboat cut across the harbor, its white sails bright against the blue sky. Evelyn watched it for a moment, tracking its clean line across the water, then turned back to her work, to the blueprints of the life she was building. Precisely according to her own design, the clients would arrive any minute. A young couple planning their first home together, full of hope and plans for the future. She would listen to their dreams, sketch possibilities, guide them through the process of building something strong and lasting. Evelyn knew better than most how foundations could crack, how carefully constructed facades could conceal fatal flaws. But she also knew how to rebuild, with better materials, stronger supports, and a clearer vision of what truly mattered. She checked her watch. 2 minutes until the clients arrived, just enough time to send a text to Carolyn. Coffee sounds perfect. How about Saturday? It wasn't the future she had planned, but as she stood in the sunlight of her new office, Evelyn realized it might be better. Hers alone by design, no tracking required.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.